Today on Short Course World, we review the Team Associated B6D. Let's get going. Hey everybody, Jason here. I'm back. Today we're going to do a review on my Team Associated B6D. It was about a few weeks ago I got an email from Team Associated and they said, hey look, we're going to be releasing a new car. You've probably already seen some stuff in the media. Are you interested in doing a review? And I was like, sure, but just keep in mind, a bad review can probably hurt more than a good review can help. And they're like, look, we're really confident in this car. We're super stoked with what we have, and we want to send it for a review. So guys like me, I think I got one. My buddy Rich that runs the RC Network, which is an awesome channel, he got one. And I know they went out to like magazines and stuff like that. But anyways, long story short, I built the car, I've raced the car on 2 full race days and then 1 full practice day. I would say that I've probably got like, I don't know, maybe 30 packs to the car. And so I feel like I got a pretty good handle on what this car is and what it isn't. So let's do this. Let's head over to the bench. I'll show you what's in my personal race car. We won't do an unboxing this time because I already did an unboxing video, but I'll show you what's in my personal race car and then we'll get on with the review like we always do. Let's go. Okay, this is my Team Associated B6D. I ran the car right out of the box, but I've got some goodies on it now, and so I'm just gonna go ahead and pop the body off and show you exactly what I have going on under the hood. This is the stock body, which I think looks awesome. We'll pull this off real quick. And I guess we'll just start up front. Basically up front here, we're running Lunsford titanium turnbuckles, although I have to admit to you, the stock chrome turnbuckles look really good. You can see that there's a new ball cup on the car. And man, these things were free. Absolutely no reaming or anything like that. And they just haven't had one pop off just yet. Of course, it's got the carbon fiber shock tower. I've got Lunsford titanium screws all the way through the car. Thanks to Kelly Lunsford. He actually surprised me with the screws and turnbuckles, and I appreciated it a bunch. We'll talk more about that in the aftermarket upgrades. When you actually get into the car itself, I have a Reedy Shorty servo. This is a Hobbywing 3.1 speed control, a Reedy Shorty battery, and a Reedy 7.5 motor. Basically, the car is pretty close to the way it comes out of the box. I've got 2-hole by 1.6 pistons front and rear. It comes with a 2-hole by 1.7 in the actual rear, but I changed it to a 1.6. And really the main changes that I've made besides the screws and turnbuckles, I just changed the rear piston and I put these wing washers and a Yokomo green spring on it. But that's my personal race car. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the build. My build was really good. I wouldn't say it was flawless. And the reason I can't say it was a flawless build is because while everything went together really well, there was one spot in the car that was a little tight, and that was the steering link between the servo horn and the steering rack. The new ball cups that are all on the steering links and turnbuckles and all that stuff were perfect, but the link that joins the servo horn to the steering rack was a little tight. I took some pliers and just squeezed on the edge just on the servo side, and it freed it right up and it was really good. So that was really the only hiccup with the entire build. I thought the build was really good, but I do have a few tips for you guys. First things first, starting up on the front, when you're actually putting the screws that go through the top plate down into like the front ball stud mount, you'll notice, I'm going to show you right here, you'll notice that when you push down on the driver, if the screw isn't all the way finished, you get a little bit of flex and there's a gap that opens up there. Now, just be really careful. Don't put those in with an electric screwdriver. Put them in with your hand because you're really going to want to feel when they finish. I actually thought mine were all the way tight, and then I was kind of testing the car before I went out on the track, and I noticed that there was some gap there, so I had to just finish tightening them down. So just be aware of that. Of course, the steering link, which I already told you guys about. And last but not least, the car went together, all the rear end stuff went together really well. But when I was changing out the screws for the titanium screws, which we'll talk about here a little bit later, I started putting in the bottom screws in the back of the tower first, and it had just a touch of an angle. And when I started putting in the top screws, it felt really tight and I heard it squeaking. So I backed everything out. Maybe when you're putting the rear end together, maybe put the screws in the top of the tower first, of the rear shock tower, that goes in the transmission case, just to make sure everything's nice and flat back there, because what you don't want to do is start putting screws in on an angle and messing up the plastics of the transmission case or anything like that. So overall, build was really good, and there's a few tips that I think could help you out a little bit. Okay, let's talk performance. We always start performance off with jumping and landing, and I think that this car jumps as athletic as any of its previous generations. You'll notice the car is actually a little bit lighter. It's at least about 30, maybe 40 grams lighter, depending on how you have it set up and what you have in the car, than a comparable like B5M. So I think the car jumps and lands really well. The car comes with 2-hole 1.6s up front and 2-hole 1.7s in the back, and I believe they have you put 30 weight front and rear. I thought the car jumped and landed pretty good like this. but when I put 2 hole by 1.6 pistons in the back, I felt like the car got even better. So that's just my personal preference. So out of the box, I think it's good, but I think if you dampen it just a little bit more, it's even better. A lot of people are wondering about the rear shocks, and I actually asked guys over at Associated, I said, hey, what's the deal? The rear shocks are a little bit shorter than the old generation. And they said, look, the body is different. The shaft is the same. The same usable length is still there because apparently on the older shocks, the shaft didn't go all the way up into the body. But for you guys that actually still have like all kinds of Kashima shocks and stuff from your B5M, if you want to switch, they've got like a new carbon tower. I don't have the part number, but I'll find it and I'll put it up right here so you guys have it. Overall, I thought jumping and landing was really good. In fact, here's a clip of me over at OCRC. And when you actually landed the car at the correct attitude, it just kind of, you see it just kind of, you can barely even tell that it landed. It just kind of lands and just kind of rips through the corner at speed. And so I was pretty impressed with that. Acceleration and braking, overall very good. I definitely think that all of these 3-gear cars, they never tend to generate that kind of like wicked amount of grip that a 4-gear car generates. But still, there were times when I was at OCRC and some of the short shoots when I would yank the throttle and I would see the car carry the front wheels just an inch or two above the ground. I had my slipper set pretty tame, so I'd imagine that if the slipper was a little bit tighter, it would have carried, it may have carried the wheels a lot higher. But overall grip was good. Of course, with a 3-gear transmission, braking is always very, very stable because of the gyroscopic force going on in there. So I thought acceleration was very good, braking was very good. And now it comes to cornering, and that's really the one area that I think things are changing and evolving in RC racing now more than ever. Now the dirt car obviously has a stand-up 3-gear transmission. The battery's a lot closer to the rear axle or the rear diff. And I thought overall the car was really good. With the 1.7s, I thought it was a little bit aggressive off power because, you know, it would kind of dump the weight onto the front end a little bit faster than I preferred. And then on power, when you yank the throttle, it'd be a little bit pushy because it would just let the weight fall onto that back end a little bit more quickly. But with that said, I actually asked Stephen Hartson to try the car out, and he made the car look absolutely amazing. And I actually got a chance to get my hands on his radio and try out his laydown modified car. And I can tell you this, I think the dirt car is really good. It's easy to drive. It generates a good amount of grip right out of the box. There are a few setup changes that I'll recommend here in just a few minutes. But when you put a laydown transmission in this car, it literally has corner speed for days. Now you have to be skilled. You have to keep the car rolling through the corner. You don't want to be herking and jerking and pitching the car with a laydown transmission. But if you're smooth on the wheel and smooth on the throttle, a laydown transmission will reward you with some wicked fast lap times. And so I would say corner speed out of the box is very good. But if you put the laydown setup in it, it's going to be absolutely ballistic. And I mean, that's not just specific to just the B6, right? The Yokomo cars are the same way. If you take the TLR car and you do like the laydown conversion and all that stuff for that car, it just ultimately comes down to the car's ability to change direction based on its weight bias. And so overall, cornering, very good. If you put the laydown, or if you can hang on to a laydown setup that's aggressive like that, then it's going to be ballistic. All right, let's talk durability. I don't want to call this car a tank and mislead you guys, but I have crashed the heck out of this car. I have literally battled with short course trucks, cartwheeled it down the straightaway at full speed with a modified 7.5 turn motor in it. I've lawn darted it. I've beat on it pretty good. I think time will tell which parts tend to be the ones that break most, but I can tell you that as far as I'm concerned, I think the car is very, very durable. Okay, let's talk value. If you've ever seen any of my videos, and I hope you have, you'll know that I really feel like there's two sides to value. There's really the metal and the plastic that come in the box, and then the global experience that the manufacturer provides through setup sheets, parts availability, driver network, things like that. Well, I think that most of us would agree that Associated, probably being the biggest company, I don't know that for a fact, but it's my guess, they have a big driver network, lots of setup sheets. They've always got races going on and drivers, big factory drivers at races. I don't think anybody would argue that they've kind of got that side on lockdown. But with the B5 platforms, I never really felt like you were always getting the most value in the box when it came to metal and plastic. That's changed. Now I really feel like for $309, I feel like you are getting as much or more car than any other car for the money. So I think when you combine the two, you literally have what I would deem the best value on the market. Now, I'm not discounting other cars. I've owned the Yokomo. I know the X-Ray cars are beautiful, beautiful plastics, beautiful machine parts, and they're in a similar price range. They're a little bit more expensive, but not miles more. But really what it comes down to is you get so much in the box along with the whole other side of the coin that it just makes this car, this is really, in my opinion, where the car shines the brightest. This is what I wanted. This is what I personally thought a team kit should be. Now, I don't normally talk about all the things that are in each kit or all the features, but I think it's worth repeating and sharing with you some of the things that are new and some of the things that I think make this kit a great value. And basically, the first one might even be the cheesiest, but the old car with black turnbuckles, they looked horrible and everybody replaced them as soon as we possibly could. But the new ones that are chrome, they might not be any stronger. They're not any lighter, but they look so much better that I just wasn't as motivated to change them, although I did, thanks Kelly Lunsford. But let me just run through a few things in the car that I think make it a great value. First of all, they chrome plated the turnbuckles. I like that. It has new ball cups, which are amazing. It's basically aluminum front hexes, aluminum front axles, aluminum rear hexes, aluminum shock standoffs in the box. It's got aluminum C-block. I mean, it's got the top hat bushing so you can raise or lower the axle right in the box. It's got pistons that actually screw down onto gold nitride coated shock shafts. I just feel like they've really included, I mean, the pills, when you actually get the pills in the kit for the C-block, there's enough pills in the box so that when you buy the D-block, or if you choose to buy the D-block, you don't have to buy pills separately. It's literally, there's more attention to detail here than I've ever seen out of Associated. And I just truly believe that this is it. I mean, I'm stoked. This is what we wanted. This is what I wanted. When I buy a team kit, this is what I wanted. So value, absolutely awesome. I would say by far the best value on the market. We're going to talk a little bit here in just a few minutes about how it compares to some of the other cars, including my older B5Ms. But for now, I just want you to know that when it comes to value, I just don't think there's a better value out there. All right, let me just share a few of the setup changes I made on my car, and I'll share what I changed and why I changed it. Let me just say this. Right out of the box, I was really impressed with the car. I think the box stock setup is really close, and I think there are a lot of guys, especially if you're a little bit smoother on the wheel and the throttle, that will really, really like that setup. But if you're like me and you're a little bit hammer-fisted and you like to saw at the wheel and just kind of push the car around, which you probably shouldn't do with a mid-motor car, but old habits die hard, try a couple of these things. The first thing I did was change to a 2-hole by 1.6 piston in the back. I didn't really do this because I thought the car needed to land better, but really springs control how far weight tends to transfer and oil controls how fast that happens. And so really what I wanted was to slow down the weight transfer from front to rear, and putting that 2-hole by 1.6 piston in there definitely did that for me. I really felt like on a few different occasions when I would really exit aggressively, the car would kind of be stuck and roll in the back. The car comes with 3 millimeters of ball stud washers underneath the rear inner ball stud. I dropped that down to 2, and the car just got so much better exiting on power, I can't begin to tell you. And then I really felt like the car could turn a little bit harder off power, so I wanted to basically try a little bit heavier rear spring, and I ended up putting a Yokomo green. And you're saying, well, wait a minute, that's not heavier, but for whatever reason, I don't know if it's the length or how progressive it is, but those are really the 3 main setup changes I made. I went to a 2-hole by 1.6 piston in the back, and I bounced around between 30 weight and 27.5 weight oil back there. I lowered the rear ball stud washer a millimeter, and I may even lower it down a little bit more just to play around. And then I changed that rear spring, and that is absolutely it. Those are the only performance-based setup changes that I've made to the car, and I am super happy with it. And I literally feel like when I go out, I'm competitive with it right now. Okay, let's take a second and I'll just kind of share my personal thoughts or my opinions on how the B6 or B6D, because that's what I have, how it stacks up to some of the other cars. You guys may know that I've owned literally B5Ms, 22 2.0s and 3.0s, the Yokomo car. Overall, if you have a 22 3.0 or a B5M Lite, which by the way, I've raced for a long time, if you have a car and it is dialed in flawlessly to the surface you're on and the track you're at, and you're not going to buy a B6D and just go a bunch faster. That just isn't the case. The geometry, RC racing has evolved so far that the geometries of these cars are getting closer and closer every day. But when you buy a B6D, I think what's really happening is you're getting a car that's lighter. It's lighter out of the box. You don't have to spend as much money to make it lighter. And it's more tunable and adaptable. Let me just say this, it's easier to be adapted to different tracks. It's easier to tune the car because it's got more adjustability built in. Whether it's something like changing the pills and the C&D block to make the pivot narrower, or whether it's keeping a fully built lay down transmission on hand so that all you have to do is unbolt one transmission and bolt in a new transmission. I think that's really the strength. If you have a 22 3.0 and it's got the LOSI or the TLR lay down transmission, the transmission and the chassis and all that, and it's dialed in for your local track, here's the issue. If you were to go to a super low grip track and couldn't hang on to it, that's where the B6D really shines. You can just unbolt the stand-up transmission or unbolt the lay-down transmission and put up a stand-up transmission. So I think that a lot of people are worrying that, oh, they have to have this car to compete, and that's not the case. I don't think this is really a case of you need the car to compete. I think this is a case of Associated has raised the bar, and if you're looking at buying a new car, they've just taken the other options off the table. I mean, the adjustability, the cost, the value, the support globally, it just makes this car, in my opinion, the best value on the market and really the best decision for a race car. So that's it. You don't need to buy it. If your car is already dialed, you don't need to buy it. But if you travel and you want a car that's a little bit more tunable or is tunable a little bit easier with less work, then I think it's a great decision. Okay, let's talk a little bit about aftermarket. Team Associated's 110 scale platform vehicles have throughout history probably been the most well-supported platform of vehicles that there really is or are in the RC industry. I mean, there's so many companies that make awesome parts and products for these vehicles. Companies like Exotech, J Concepts, Shill Racing, Lunsford's titanium products. I mean, literally, I could go on and on. Right now, there's so many cool little gadgets. In fact, for my personal car, I've already started upgrading some things. Raw Speed and now Shill Racing both have carbon fiber battery straps. Not only that, but Associated has tons of their own aftermarket goodies, like the lay-down transmission conversion, which is like 27 bucks. I mean, aluminum wing washers, tons of aluminum C&D mounts, steering racks, all that kind of stuff. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I would say that when it comes to aftermarket goodies for the B6 platforms, I think that it'll probably be the most well-supported vehicle maybe in the entire industry. Okay, so we've talked about everything. We've talked about the build, performance, durability, aftermarket value, a couple of build tips, a couple of setup changes that I've made. Let's talk conclusion. I'm the first one to call any of these companies out if I really feel like they've done something wrong, but I think it's only fair to give them the credit or to acknowledge when they've done something right, and this is one of those times. They crushed it. Associated, you nailed it. This is exactly what I think of. When I think of a team kit, this is what I think of. The value that you get in the box, the setup that comes when you build the kit, all of it is exactly, I just think you hit the nail on the head. I think that this car performs well out of the box. I think it's a great value. I think it's durable. Obviously, I'm sure the part support will get good as soon as this whole kind of release thing dies off. Now, for all you guys that are wondering, do you need this car? If you have a car that is absolutely dialed and you only race at one surface and you don't need a super tunable car, then there's no need to race out and buy a B6D. I'm sure the platform you have, whether it's a Yokomo or an X-Ray or TLR or whatever, I'm sure it works just fine. But if the time comes that you want a new car or you want a car that has a lot of adjustability and a lot of tunability built right into it, I don't think there's a better value than the B6D platform or the B6 platform. I don't have a B6, I have the D, but anyways, overall, I'm super impressed. So, my wife said to me, she said, you always have some constructive criticism. I'm like, I was thinking about it, why didn't you guys do this sooner? That's my criticism. Now we're waiting for that four-wheel. I hope, hey, you set the bar really high with this car. We'll see you for the four-wheel review. All right, you guys, I hope you enjoyed watching this review just as much as I enjoyed making it for you guys. I appreciate you guys watching, and we will see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Hey, here's a quick update. I shot this review a few weeks ago, and I've been really stoked with the car so far. Here's the car that Associated sent me. I've been running it. You can see the tires are dirty. Just got a ton of runtime on it, and I'm still just as stoked today as I was the day I got it. In fact, I liked it so much that I went out and I bought another one so I could build a dedicated laydown car. The owner of my local hobby shop, Rain Man's Raceway, actually did a midnight release. So me and a few friends who are really excited and really liked the car, we all went out and got these cars on midnight. So I just want to say thanks for watching, you guys. I'm just as stoked today as I was a few weeks ago when I shot the review, and I hope you guys enjoy the car just as much as I did. Later. I just want to say thanks again for watching my videos. I appreciate you guys watching. If you enjoyed this video, you'd be doing me a huge favor if you could either like, comment, or even better, subscribe. I post a lot of stuff on social media like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, stuff like that. So if you want to catch up with me, I'll post this stuff up for you, and you can come on over, add me as a friend, follow me on Instagram, and you'll be able to see things that just don't make it to YouTube. Again, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Hey, just say, Lee, just say this. Just say, Jason, that was a good
25-second lap. How did that happen?
Just say.
25. You see that 25 seconds?
Hey, just say, Jason, that was a great drive. You outdrove me fine, sir.
G Church didn't even run a 25-second lap. No, he only went 7 laps.